Elon Musk makes a change at Twitter that honestly seems kind of snowflakey. Biden drops 9 gaffes in one speech, an idiotic trigger warning, Target slashes prices, and an anti-gun TikToker scares the public needlessly. All that and so much more is coming up on today's episode of Brad vs. Everyone, my daily series where I take on the craziest ideas in our politics and across the internet from a center-right, independent perspective. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and sticking around. This channel's growing really fast, and I would love to have you be a part of it. And if you're a returning viewer, you know what I'm about to say. Don't forget to hit that like button and comment with your thoughts as we go along. I do read the comments, and I pick a few to respond to in every episode. Now, before we get into our main topic for today, I want to touch on a disturbing new product that I've just seen released. Oreo just dropped a Sour Patch Kids flavor, and I'm starting to think that this whole freedom and capitalism thing was a mistake. Not actually, of course, but sometimes part of free market competition is businesses trying things and woefully failing, and I think this is going to end up in that category. Now, let's get serious and talk about the changes happening over at X, formerly known as Twitter, where Elon Musk took over, bought the company, and promised to restore free speech. I found the app a lot more interesting since he took over, and he's definitely done some things that promote free speech, but he's also done some stuff that's pretty inconsistent on the free speech front, like banning pro-Palestine slogans, certain slogans, and throttling links to Substack because he got annoyed at them for their business practices. And now X is formally restricting accounts that use a word Elon doesn't like. As The Advocate reports, Elon's social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter, has begun restricting accounts for using the terms cis and cisgender, labeling them slurs. Users attempting to post these terms now receive warnings stating that they may be considered slurs and could be used in violation of X's rules. For the uninitiated, cisgender is what woke people say to refer to people who are not transgender. So, most people. Elon has famously tweeted that cis is a heterophobic word. Shame on anyone who uses it. This doesn't make a lot of sense because cis is about gender identity, not sexuality, so it wouldn't really be heterophobic. In fact, cisgender is a similar term to heterosexual, which means not gay, right? It means attracted to the opposite sex. And Elon doesn't really seem that bothered by that term. But I get that a lot of people don't want to be called cis or cisgender. And look, I think if you're going to say that people should respect your pronouns or your feelings and your word choice, that you should respect theirs too and not call them cis if they don't want to be called cis. But I don't really agree that it's a slur. The relevant definition of a slur here is a derogatory or insulting term applied to a particular group of people. And cisgender is just suggesting that an individual or a group of people is not transgender. I don't see what's derogatory or insulting about that, so I don't really see why it would be considered a slur. But much more importantly, even if it was a slur, slurs are free speech. Over and over and over again, Elon Musk said that all legal speech, so all speech protected by the First Amendment, will be allowed on Twitter. Nobody would seriously argue that even if it is a slur, cis or cisgender is somehow not protected by free speech or not protected by the First Amendment. It obviously is. So if Elon's going to allow free speech like he said, he has to allow people to say or call each other cisgender, even if that hurts some people's feelings. Getting mad about this word to the point where you try to ban or restrict or censor other people online strikes me as snowflake behavior. Again, I really don't use the term cis. I view it as woke terminology. I don't think it's used commonly in everyday life, but if activist types want to say it online, they're well within their free speech rights to do so. Now, yes, Twitter is a private platform that Elon owns, and he can make rules and censor it if he wants. It's not formally bound by the First Amendment. But what he can't do is promise to uphold all legal free speech on his platform, but then pick and choose and censor some woke stuff that he doesn't like. At least, he can't do that while claiming to be a free speech hero. Because the math there isn't mathing, at least not for me. But what do you guys think? Do you consider cisgender a slur? And even if you do you really think it needs to be censored or restricted on Twitter? Let me know in the comments below. I do want to hear your thoughts on this one. And now let's talk about our president, because Things are not going well. Biden just gave a speech at an NAACP event and had to issue 9 corrections from a single speech. Some of these were honestly just funny, like when he said erectionists instead of insurrectionists, talking about January 6th.
He calls the erectionists who stormed Capitol Hill patriots.
Oops. But some of them were disturbing, like when Biden talked about how, in his mind, apparently, he was vice president during the pandemic.
And when I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic. And what happened was, Barack said to me, go to Detroit and help fix it.
Even though his vice presidency ended several years before the pandemic began. He also told the NAACP, which was giving him an award, that he was humbled to receive this organization.
Folks, I'm humbled to receive this organization, which defines the character and consequence of what we do.
The White House staff tried to do damage control on this by correcting the official transcript in 9 separate locations from one brief speech. Y'all, this is not normal. If he just made any one of those mistakes, like, okay, it happens, especially when you're speaking off the cuff, you're speaking live, you'll sometimes mess up a word here or there. But the non-stop flow of gaffes and errors and calling out to dead people and thinking you met with world leaders who are not there or are actually dead, or thinking that things happened while you were vice president, that you were actually a senator, or where you actually were out of office. Like, this stuff is concerning. This is the man with the nuclear codes, guys. But let me know in the comments what you thought of these gaffes, and if any of them gave you a giggle. The erectionists one sure did for me. Now we gotta talk about a truly absurd story, because AMC just slapped a classic film with a trigger warning at the beginning. So I've never seen the movie Goodfellas, the 90s mob flick, but now I kinda want to, honestly. Because as Fox News reports, AMC Networks faced backlash after it placed a warning before classic 1990 mobster film Goodfellas, cautioning viewers it may defy modern cultural norms. This film includes language and or cultural stereotypes that are inconsistent with today's standards of inclusion and tolerance and may offend some viewers, the warning read. A representative from AMC told the New York Post that in 2020 we began adding advisories in front of certain films that include racial or cultural references that some viewers might find offensive. However, the Post noted other mob movies are not given the same warning, instead given more typical cautions about nudity and violence. This is so stupid. It's literally a movie about mobsters murdering people, but there's harmful stereotypes about Italians in there, God forbid. I mean, it's already rated R. That's all the warning people should need, that they're gonna see adult content. I honestly think this is freaking insulting to viewers, as if they're really so fragile they can't hear people discuss things in a way that suggests a couple stereotypes or something without melting into puddles of tears or something. Like, who asked for this? Honestly, I would love to know. Can you find me a single person out there who watched this film and was like, oh my god, I'm so offended, this movie really harmed me, AMC, do better? I really don't believe those people exist. I just don't. The effing political correctness has effing taken everything away, a former NYPD cop who played a police officer in Goodfellas told the Post. This is how life was back then. It's not a clean, beautiful thing. You can't cleanse history. If you want to tell true history, you gotta tell it the way it is. Michael Francis, a one-time captain of the Polumbo crime family, interesting name there, responded to the warning, "We don't need anyone protecting mob guys. It's crazy." So I haven't seen this movie, though I really kind of want to go watch it now. Maybe I will. But from what I'm reading, it seems like it's an accurate depiction of what mob life was like back in the day. So is it really depicting harmful stereotypes if it's also accurate? I feel like it can't be both of those things. More importantly, this fragile PC bullshit is just out of control. What do you think, especially if you've seen the movie? Let me know what I'm missing, and if you think the film is really so bad it needs a trigger warning, please let me know in the comments. Up next, those dastardly evil corporations are up to no good. This time, cutting their prices? Target is cutting prices on 5,000 popular products in an effort to attract more customers despite ongoing financial challenges, the company announced Monday, by reducing the prices on household essentials from groceries like milk, meat, bread, soda, fresh fruit, vegetables, yogurt, and coffee to diapers, paper towels, and pet food. Consumers will collectively save millions of dollars, Target said. Target said it has already cut prices on 1,500 items and that thousands more price cuts will take effect over the course of the summer. Target routinely adjusts its prices to ensure it is competitive within the markets it does business, the company said. And Target's not the only company pulling back its prices now. Last week, Walmart executives told analysts on an earnings call that its rollback count is up, and rollbacks refers to temporary price reductions on goods. U.S. Walmart CEO John Furner specified that the company has nearly 7,000 rollbacks across the store. And earlier this month, discount grocer Aldi announced it was passing along $100 million in savings by slashing prices on more than 250 items through Labor Day. And it's not just retail stores, but apparently some fast food restaurants are also rolling back their prices. CNBC reports that Wendy's will now offer a $3 breakfast combo meal starting on Monday in competition with a similar limited-time value meal option by McDonald's. The deals come as restaurants struggle to win over consumers as diners, particularly those with lower incomes, pull back on spending. Now, I want to talk about this for a couple of reasons. One, we could just all use some good news, and inflation has crushed people, so hopefully some prices going down a little bit will give people a little bit of breathing room and help them out. But two, this completely destroys the progressive socialist narrative that inflation just happened because companies got greedy and jacked up their prices, when in reality, companies are always greedy, and that didn't suddenly change in 2021. If you actually believe that would require you to believe that now, with all these companies lowering their prices, they've suddenly become less greedy and more generous and kind-hearted. That's delusional. They're not cutting their prices because they want to be nice or kind, but because they have to, because of market competition and because consumers are feeling cash-strapped, so they're not as willing to spend the money. So they have to lower prices or people won't buy as much. In fact, they're lowering their prices in order to get more profits. Because you can actually sometimes make more money overall by selling things at a lower price because you can sell more total units. So companies rolling back their prices is good news, it really is. But it should put to bed the notion that companies are ever raising prices just because they're extra greedy that month, or because they're lowering prices because they're feeling really generous. Like, no babe, that's not how economics works. It should remind you that competitive markets can and do work out in consumers' favor. But what do you think? Will you be filling up your shopping cart a little bit more at Target or Walmart after this news? And will you be hitting up the Wendy's or McDonald's drive-thru for breakfast? I don't eat it too often because it's not very healthy, but I love a good McDonald's breakfast. Oh, that ham and egg and cheese on the English muffin. Oh, with the hash browns. Oh, the hash browns. Kill me. Up next, it's time for DELULU Epidemic, my segment where I spotlight people who are letting their stupid show.
Your DELULU is showing babe.
Today, I can't believe this is a real tweet from a trans activist. They're literally trying to claim that being heterosexual is problematic now. What? Doesn't mean that you don't love your wife simply because if she was fundamentally different in her nature, you would have a different relationship with her. That's just how relationships work. Romantic love never has been and never will be truly unconditional. And obviously, biological sex is a deal breaker for most people unless they're bisexual. I always find it so unfortunate and frankly creepy when some trans activists essentially try to shame people into finding them sexy. It's giving predatory, honestly. My trans friends who are normal and well put together don't need to shame or bully people into wanting to date them. They have plenty of people who are interested. Like, this is just not normal. To this trans Twitter troll, your DELULU is showing. Up next, it's time for Brad vs. TikTok, my daily series where I take on the craziest ideas going viral on the Clock app.
Pronoun of the day is slugs.
And now let's take a look at one TikTok from this left-wing activist who wants you to be very, very, very scared and hurry up, shut up, and get on board with his gun control agenda.
Question, did you know there was a shooting at a high school graduation today in Missouri? Like where kids were trying to get their diplomas and then there was a shooting, so they had to reschedule it. Did you hear about that?
So, Chris, maybe nobody talked about that shooting in Missouri because it wasn't really news. A fight broke out and 2 people were shot with non-life-threatening injuries, and the person who did it was arrested. That's not a mass shooting, and in a country of 330 million people, it's not national news.
Did you know that last night, Saturday night, in Savannah, Georgia, there was a mass shooting where 10 people were shot? That was one of 3 shootings on Saturday in Savannah. The other 2 left 2 people dead. Did you hear about that?
So in the Savannah incident, 10 people were shot, but again, no one died, thankfully. So while it's still violent and concerning, it's not the kind of thing that will make national news in a country this big where crimes are happening all the time. And it wasn't a mass shooting in a targeted mass slaughter of random people. It was a crime that broke out after 2 women got in a fight. I'm not saying that this stuff isn't serious, but you're trying to make it sound like there's a Columbine or a Sandy Hook happening every day and people just aren't noticing. And that's just not true.
You know that less than 24 hours before that, on Saturday morning, there was a mass shooting in Columbus, Ohio. 3 people shot, 3 people injured. This week at the university that I'm going to graduate from, Kennesaw State University, a student was shot and killed on campus. Did you hear about any of that? I just think people need to understand that whether people talk about it or the media talks about it, like, we have a gun violence epidemic. Like, we average roughly 2 mass shootings a day. This is completely normalized. This isn't even front page news. I highly doubt anybody, very few people have heard of those things. Stunning, man.
So the claim that we average 2 mass shootings per day is extremely misleading and essentially false. It comes from a source called the Gun Violence Archive, which defines a mass shooting to include any incident where 4 people are shot, even if nobody is seriously injured or no one dies. This is just not what most people think of as a mass shooting. We hear that and we think a targeted killing and slaughter of people at random using a firearm, right? We think of Parkland, we think of Columbine, we think of Sandy Hook, these horrible incidents. They just count any incident where several people are shot, even if nobody dies. So that's just mostly capturing gang activity and other regular crimes, not mass shootings as the public thinks of them in the consciousness of the average person. My concern is that people hear these statistics and think that Columbine is happening twice a day in America, which is just simply not true. It just has absolutely no basis in reality. We can and we should have a productive conversation about gun violence in America and whether any of the solutions in the form of different gun control policies would actually meaningfully reduce or address that issue. I'm deeply, deeply skeptical of that. But we should do so without misleading people or scaring them needlessly. At least, that's my take, but let me know what you thought of this video and of my response in the comments below. Now, speaking of the comments, before we wrap up today's show, I'll read a few of the comments that you guys left on the last episode. One person writes, "Don't forget that Fauci was called sexy." Ugh, why would you remind me of that? That feels like a hate crime. Seriously though, it's easy to forget how culty things got. Like, did you guys know anybody who had one of the Fauci bobbleheads? That was demented. Another person says, "I'm so glad you cover both the madness of the far left and far right. It's something that unfortunately is ridiculously rare." Thank you, and I will keep doing that, though to be honest with you, sometimes I lose subscribers when I criticize the right, and if I just wanted to grow my channel as fast as possible, all I would do is just make fun of woke people, because that's the most popular content. But I find that boring, and I would rather tell the truth as I see it about both sides and grow slower than take the easy way out and only talk about some things that I believe. Another person says, "Most people who chant from the river to the sea don't even realize what this means, the eradication of the state of Israel. Instead of banning this speech, we need to educate people. Same with Intifada revolution. We need conversations, not censorship." I completely agree with this. And yeah, a lot of the people chanting from the river to the sea don't actually know what that means. You can tell from these clips where they ask them, "What river and what sea?" And they don't know. But the best response to bad speech is more speech and better speech and helping people see the light, not censoring them. Up next, somebody writes, "I thank God every day that he didn't spawn me in Canada." Yeah, I'm also grateful that I was spawned, interesting word choice, this person must be a gamer, in the US rather than Canada, but more importantly in the US rather than in a third world country or an authoritarian regime. People on the left love to talk about privilege a lot, but I think all Americans, just by virtue of being born in America, have perhaps the most profound privilege of all. Another person said, "I didn't realize just how much I needed to see Brad sipping on a straw so dramatically until we just got to see Brad sipping on a straw so dramatically at just the right time." Yeah, that was funny. Maybe I'll do that more often. I'm trying to drink iced coffee so I don't stain my teeth, and so I've been drinking through a straw, and you can be a little sassy with it. Anyway, I'll leave it there for now. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please do subscribe and stick around. And don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this episode. And with that, we'll talk again tomorrow.